There's one last thing we need to look at when we're looking at the theories of factor markets is the idea that economists assume that wages are the same for all workers, specifically of all workers doing the same job. So if you look back at the graphs that we just had, um, you'll notice there was only one price for labor. But in theory, that works. It has to work because we can't show multiple wages in our theory. But in reality, wages are not the same for people across the economy. And most, obviously, you can see some people who are making outrageous wages. Look at most of our professional sports players. But also look at what a preschool teacher makes. No comparison between those wages. The thing that's interesting is also that people doing the same job may not make the same wage. If we're talking about preschool teachers across the board, why wouldn't they make the same wage? In reality, they may not. There are some reasons why people doing the same job won't get the same wage. Obviously, seniority or experience. If you've been a preschool teacher for 15 years and there's somebody who's been a preschool teacher for 6 months, probably not making the same wage. Your education. Why are you going to college? You're going to college because you think it's going to make you more money, right? Give you a leg up on somebody else doing the same job. You need to make more. Your location. Let me tell you, people who work in Alaska make more money than somebody working in New Jersey, probably, or definitely make more than somebody working in Montana doing the same job. All right, different locations. Those different locations would have different costs of living, you know, so they need to make different wages. All right. Your skills that you bring to the job. If you're a very creative person and you're a preschool teacher, that's probably a really good thing. If you're not a creative person, well, maybe you don't do your job quite as well. So those are all legal reasons for why people would make different wages. Illegal reason, prejudice. Um, Unfortunately, while it is illegal to discriminate based on many different criteria, it still happens. I hope you never experience it, but it still happens. Um, we are trying the best we can to uh, deal with these prejudices, but I felt because it does happen, we still needed to add it in here. So think about it. Can you think of other reasons why someone or why two people doing the same job wouldn't get the same wage? Think about it. It's an interesting social issue. The last issue that we need to talk about as far as the factor market is concerned um, is the topic of elasticity of demand for labor. All right, or for whatever input you're talking about. But elasticity is a little different, or the factors influencing the elasticity of demand for an input into production are just slightly different. All right, so let's stick with labor. We would define the elasticity of demand for labor as the responsiveness of a change in quantity demanded of labor due to a change in the wage. And remember, the wage is the price of labor. So basically, we haven't changed the definition at all. It's still the responsiveness of a change in quantity demanded to a change in the price. All right, we just added labor in here to be clear. What does change are the factors influencing the elasticity of demand. If you recall, when we looked at the elasticity in the product market, we talked about the percentage of income spent on the good. Well, that gets changed here. What we now are looking at is the percentage of total costs due to, in this case, labor costs. You change labor costs to the cost of any other input. Now, the next two factors are very similar to factors we saw when we were looking in the product market. One of them is the availability of substitutes. That's the same. Then the time period to adjust is the same. All right, so the first three are very close to what we saw in the product market. The final factor is very different. It is the elasticity of demand for the output of labor. And this is a reflection of that derived demand we talked about. Think about this. If the demand for your output is very elastic, you change the price of it, demand's going to change a lot. Well, that's going to feed back to the demand for your input. If you change if the wage gets changed, that's going to affect your demand for labor. If you have to pay higher wages, you're also then going to want to change the price of your good. You'd want to pass that increase in wages on to your consumer. Well, passing an increase in labor onto your consumers is going to affect the demand for your product. So can you see how with this derived demand, inputs, outputs, how much you want of each is going to be very much worked in together. We can't get away from it. So take a look at the factor market and let me know if you've got any problems. Bye-bye.